Hello, it's time for Combat Patrol Carnage. We're back with issue 23 and it's time for us to dive into our lore. So we're looking at the different weapons of the Aeldari. We're also looking at the different paths that each of the Aeldari warriors can walk. We look at the Great Rift, and we also have a naming chart for our Aeldari units ready for our Guardian Defenders data record next issue. So we have some awesome lore to look at in just a sec, but before we hit the table, don't forget to do all the usual. Don't forget to like this video if you've enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and drop me a comment down below. Love hearing back from you guys, and it helps these smaller channels like mine get noticed. Finally then, warbay.shop is the proud sponsor of Combat Patrol Carnage. They stock a huge backlog of previous partworks from Hachette and have recently updated their catalogue to include all future issues of Combat Patrol. They are limited to one per customer at the moment, but if you drop them an email, they're able to pick up extra issues for you once they become available from the retailer. So warbay.shop, there's a link in the video description for you to follow. Check them out, and who knows, you might find your next hobby project at a bit of a discount. Right, let's head to the table and we'll do some reading. So there we go, that's our Guardian Defenders built, ready for from last issue. But it's time now to dive back into 23, and we have our lore articles. So we'll put these guys off to the side, ready for them to get their coat of red. And we'll adjust the camera and we can dive on in. Alright, past our build guide, and here we have our first lore article, Weapons of the Asuryani. Aeldari warriors are highly trained, and many of them spend years of their lives perfecting highly focused specialisms. For such warriors, only the best weapons will suffice, and the armories of the craft worlds are laden with innumerable exquisitely made weapons, each one carefully designed to exacting specifications. Wielding the Spear of Twilight, Prince Uriel battles a Tyranid incursion. Prince Uriel, defender of Iandan, returned from exile at the command of Yvraine in order to help save the craft world against the Tyranids of High Fleet Kraken. Yeah, pretty cool. Can't wait for this guy to hopefully get a new model in a hopeful future Eldar supplement. But yeah, it'd be nice to see him leading a full force of Corsairs. That'd be quite cool. Moving on though. To the Aeldari, both the crafting and use of weaponry is considered a high art. Their technology has an ancient lineage and is far in advance of that possessed by many other species. In comparison, even the best weapons produced by humanity's Mechanicus look like childish experiments. In battle, highly trained Aeldari warriors use these arms with incredible precision, executing tactical advances under a suppressing hail of withering shuriken fire. As the light support troops pile into the fray on jet bikes or on foot, close combat specialists engage in hand-to-hand combat, severing limbs and heads from enemy fighters with deadly swords, spears, and wraith blades. From behind, heavy support squads let loose blazing arcs of lightning and unleash esoteric weapons that rip holes in the fabric of reality itself. When Aeldari training and discipline is married to their martial technology, few opponents can withstand their deadly attacks. The Aeldari Armory. The Aeldari make use of many different types of weapons, most of which are unique to their species. Occasionally, other species experiment with similar technologies, such as the Imperial use of plasma weapons. But these attempts pale in comparison to the high artifice and excellence of Aeldari craftsmanship. So, first off, shuriken catapults and pistols. Shuriken weapons are the characteristic small arms of Asuryani forces. They use magnetic repulsion to hurl out microscopically thin discs that rip through bone, flesh, and armor with ease. They are most effective at short and medium range, losing considerable accuracy over longer distances. This is more than compensated for by their rate of fire, from which can reach over 100 shots per second. D-cannons. D-cannons are horrifying and powerful weapons. They rip a hole in real space, opening up a brief miniature portal to the warp. The target may be pulled in whole, but more often they are torn apart by the sudden force exerted upon them. Star cannons. Star cannons are highly advanced plasma weapons. Leveraging the Aeldari's unmatched mastery of this technology, they fire white-hot plasma at the enemy, while the exterior of the weapon remains cool to the touch. Bright lances. Bright lances are huge laser weapons that can burn straight through their targets. They are constructed with psychically grown crystals at their heart that concentrate and filter the light as it leaves the barrel. Due to the intense beam they generate, they rely on the extremely efficient power generation systems that are used by the Aeldari. Ghost Glaives. A Ghost Glaive is a large power sword that is carried by Wraith constructs such as Wraith Lords. Ghost Glaives are set with a spirit stone that holds the soul of the deceased Aeldari warrior, granting the weapon a sentience of its own. Scorpion's Claw. A Scorpion's Claw is an ancient weapon of the striking Scorpion Exarchs. It takes the form of a powered claw-shaped glove with a shuriken catapult incorporated on its back. In combat, it can be used to crush and tear the enemy's armor. Plasma Grenades. Plasma grenades are one of the finest achievements in plasma technology. Once thrown, they explode in a ferocious ball of searing plasma, making short work of any nearby infantry and lightly armoured vehicles. So, the Aeldari weapons, just as deadly as they are elegant. And yeah, it really shows them and their skill at arms and crafting to have weapons such as the plasma, which doesn't really get hot, and the bright lances, which make a Space Marine's las cannon look like a las gun. Yeah, really nice and interesting article to look at and read, all about the different weapons. Moving on, we got another bit about Aeldari lore. This is the paths of the Asuryani. The Phoenix Lords are the embodiment of the path of the warrior. You see Azaman, who's just recently had a brand new model, which is gorgeous, leading his chosen warriors, the Dire Avengers. The Aeldari of the craft worlds, known as the Asuryani, keep to a strict discipline linked to their occupation and place in society. This is known as the path. They carefully focus on mental order, attainment of skill and higher learning, shunning lower pleasures and the cheap and brief thrill of enjoyable sensations. The Aeldari are a people who are naturally drawn to pleasure and even excess. To guard against falling to the weakness of emotion and sensation, the Asuryani have developed a series of paths. The highly controlled and regulated study of single disciplines, practically to the point of perfection. Every Asuryani is expected to intensely focus on their path to the exclusion of all other things. This allows the devotee a small amount of measured satisfaction, enough to satiate them, but not so much that they risk falling into a spiral of self-gratification. There are many paths to choose from: sculpture, warfare, dance, science, even agriculture. Each path encompasses everything that the Asuryani needs to live a full life, so they will not have to step off their path for even a moment. Although after many years, some Asuryani do choose a new path. Each path is carefully designed to contribute to the survival of the craft world and its inhabitants, and no path is seen as being less important or less worthy than any other. Path of the Outcast. Not all Asuryani choose to live aboard craft worlds. Some find the structure and constraints to be too difficult to bear, and these Asuryani take the path of the Outcast instead. Some of those who leave will still serve their craft world in one way or another, perhaps by scouting out enemies, fighting as rangers, or serving as shroud runners. Others will act as agents of their people, ranging far and wide to recover ancient artifacts or the lost spirit stones of the fallen. and someone as powerful split from their craft world entirely, seeking out adventure or alien treasure, perhaps returning at some distant point in the future when they have had their fill of adventure and may look to another path aboard the craft world for respite. Path of the Warrior. The Aeldari species is only a fragment of what it once was, and as they are so few in number, almost all Asiani will heed the call to war at some point in their lives. Those who walk the path of the warrior will each choose a particular branch on this path, inspired by an aspect of Cain, the bloody-handed god. These aspect warriors will serve at a shrine that is dedicated to the aspect they follow, and they will master the signature arms, equipment, and tactics of their chosen discipline. In war, the different aspect warriors come together under the leadership of the craft world's commanders. Together, their individual power is multiplied many times over, and they are melded into an unstoppable force. I have seen the future, and it is death. Path of the Seer. The Path of the Seer is the most difficult and dangerous of the paths, known as the Witch Path. Those who walk it are intimately connected to the warp and risk death and madness with every step. Some who walk this path become trapped and are unable to leave. Many of these become Farseers, and they are elevated to positions of leadership within their craft world. But the responsibilities lie heavy on them, and few would envy their burden. Even worse is the eventual fate of all Farseers. Once they have advanced far enough down the path, their obsession with the metaphysical overcomes their physical body, and it slowly turns into a delicate psycho-crystal. Once transformed, their frozen form is linked into the craft world's infinity circuit forever. So, there we have it, a look at the different Aeldari paths. Which one would you take? I think possibly Path of the Outcast for me, if not, definitely Path of the Warrior. Looking to the galaxy again, we are learning more about the Great Rift. Known as the Cicatrix Maledictum to the Imperium, Gork's Grin to the Orcs, and the Daphidian to the Aeldari, and many other names besides, the Great Rift is a tear in the fabric of reality that divides the galaxy. Waves of unnatural energy radiate from it, rendering interstellar travel and communication next to impossible. Imperium Nihilus. When reality was sundered, a shockwave of psychic energy was unleashed, destroying or corrupting planets in its path. Hordes of demons spilled forth, heretical cults arose, decrying the end of civilization, and entire populations turned upon themselves in frenzies of self-destructive violence. Huge tracts of Imperial space have been rendered all but unreachable by the roiling warp storm of the Great Rift. Severed from the rest of the Emperor's realm and cut off from Terra, each system in the Imperium Nihilus must stand alone against the horrors of the night. Imperium Sanctus. The portion of humanity's realm that is known as the Imperium Sanctus is the half that fared better in the wake of the Great Rift's opening. Many systems in this region are still within reach of the guiding beacon of the Astronomicon, the psychic signal that makes interstellar travel and communication possible, granting the Imperium Sanctus a degree of stability. It is here that Lord Guilliman marshals crusade fleets, hoping to beat back the forces of darkness and restore light to the Imperium Nihilus. Reality sundered. The Great Rift was brought about by the machinations of the followers of Chaos in a bid to bring their mad realm into real space. Although none know for certain how this was achieved, many point to the destruction of the planet Cadia and its ancient pylons, the fracturing of the Baeltan craft world, and the resurrection of the death god Iniad as key events in its formation. The Nakman Gauntlet. Turmoil caused in the warp by the violent emergence of the Great Rift has rendered warp travel even more dangerous and unpredictable than normal. It is virtually impossible to cross from one side to the other in all but a handful of areas. The largest and most stable of these passages is the Nakman Gauntlet, which is fiercely contested by the Imperium and the forces of Chaos. An Empire Divided. The Cicatrix Maledictum has also played havoc with interstellar communication, preventing messages from being sent across it. The Imperium now finds itself essentially cut in half. It is effectively two realms, the Imperium Sanctus and the Imperium Nihilus, and many worlds and systems are isolated. So, the galaxy isn't exactly the most safest of places, even at the best of times, but now with the Cicatrix Maledictum ripping it in half, it's even worse. So, finally then, for this video, we have an article all about Aeldari unit names. Naming your models and units is a great way to build a connection with them and forge exciting narratives on the tabletop. You can use the tables on the next page to create names for your Aeldari units, including the ones in the Warhammer Combat Patrol collection, and any you add to your army in the future. A Samhan Combat Patrol advances on a hidden enemy position. Using name tables. These unit names have two parts. Roll to find the column, then the row of the name you have generated, then combine the name from this first table and the name generated on the second. For example, Yanwei's Blooded Blades. And there we have it. So we got the leader of the squad's name, and then the title and name the unit has been given. So we'll roll on that next issue when we have our collect article for the Guardians. But finally then, we have a quote. The wind whipping across your face as your blade whips across the throats of the foe. It makes the blood sing. A bit dark for an Eldar, but there we have it. Right, that's it for this video. And up next then, of course, we have our play article, which will see us learn about Oath of Moment. So I hope you'll join me all for that, but all what's left to do is say thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time on more Combat Patrol Carnage. Goodbye.